If you're searching for a meaningful spiritual experience, look no further than St. Anthony's Parish in Allston, Massachusetts. Join us at 43 Holton Street in between Soldiers Field Road and the Mass Pike. Immerse yourself in the complete St. Anthony's Parish encounter through our 10 o'clock a.m. chanted Mass. Whether you're a Catholic seeking a parish to call home or someone looking for spiritual guidance, our welcoming community is here for you. Visit our website at www.stanthonyalston.org for more information. St. Anthony's Parish, where faith finds a home. Welcome to the Voice of St. Anthony Parish from Allston, Massachusetts, right here on WROL 950 AM 100.3 FM. And you can also hear us at CatholicAudiomedia.com. That's CatholicAudiomedia.com, and we are here every single Monday through Friday. Here to offer you the program we offer to build your faith. And the program drops on your favorite podcast platform. Look for Catholic Audio Media on your favorite podcast platform. Unless you're on Spotify, it's all one word, except on Spotify it's three words. And you may have to scroll around to find the Voice of St. Anthony Parish. Well, I was talking yesterday about a tweet I found from Bishop Burbidge. And of course, I mean, he's obviously a bishop and he obviously has some other things to say that are very good. But I was concerned about always be careful when people say, you have got to do this, you have got to turn from sin so that you can go to heaven. Really, the first step is to be people of prayer. And I said, go back to the original model. When Jesus was walking on the earth, there were sinners, and Jesus encountered sinners, we know that. And they encountered him. They would go to his talks. They would go to be with him. They would go when he was healing people. They would go there, and that encounter changed them. And then it was a question of how are they going to live their life now that they've had this encounter. There's a fascinating reality that everyone who encountered Christ changed, either for the better or for the worse, but they all changed radically. And we understand that, and that is modeled in the story of the three kings, when they encounter Christ and then go back by a different route. There's a parable in that, and that's what the parable is. When you encounter Christ, your life is changed, and either for better or for worse. When the Pharisees encountered Christ, their hearts became more and more hardened. When others, the sinners, encountered Christ, they became more inclined to turn towards Christ and away from sin. But realize that's your first step. And this is I really think the Lord is speaking to the church right now and telling us this has got to stop. Because one of the things that we're called to do is have people encounter Christ. Let me give you a good example, since we're always talking about the Eucharist, and there'll be the renewal of the Eucharist coming up in July in Indianapolis. Now, I want you to think about something for a minute. What do we understand the Eucharist? Well, one of the things we realize is the Eucharist is the body and blood of Christ. And so when we receive the Eucharist, we have this encounter with Christ where he gives everything of himself to us, and he calls us to give everything of ourselves to him. That's what we're called to do. That's a very powerful moment, a very intimate and powerful moment. Well, okay, but there are people who are there, and we all know that we're called to be in a state of grace to receive the Eucharist. But there are people out there that are like policing the Eucharist, and they are looking to see who should and should not receive. That's wrong. That should not happen. And I explain this all the time. Yes, you can be someone who does not receive the Eucharist, who feels they should not receive whatever. And that's one thing in itself, and I talk about that in the church, where you may feel you're not ready to receive the Eucharist, and if you choose, because maybe you're not in a state of grace, or maybe for some other reason, you don't receive the Eucharist, that honors God as well. But remember, Another aspect of our faith is, since we recognize Jesus is present in the body and blood of the Eucharist, and so he's present in the tabernacle, he's present at an exposition of Mass. Since we recognize all that, we also believe that we can be in his presence at an exposition. And anyone can go to an exposition of the Eucharist. Anyone can go to that. There are no restrictions. Obviously, people who reject Christ wouldn't go there. It wouldn't make sense. But there are people who may say, I'm not ready to receive now. And so they go to an exposition of the Eucharist. We have one here Wednesdays at 6 to 7. And an exposition of the Eucharist so that they can be in a special moment of prayer, even if they aren't receiving. We're going to talk more about this on the other side of the break. You're listening to the voice of St. Anthony Parish. You can now leave a message for us, which we can air and discuss on this program. Just call 617-297-7452. That's 617-297-7452. 617-297-7452. Feel free to call, leave a comment, a question, or even feedback, and we may play it on the air. I can discuss your comment or question as well, so give that a try. 617-297-7452, 617-297-7452. We're back, and we're talking about this powerful experience of realizing that we can encounter Christ in a special way through the exposition of the Eucharist, which is very commonly practiced in many Catholic parishes. We do it here. Some parishes do 24/7. They literally have the Eucharist exposed in a chapel 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that's very real too. And since we believe this is the body and blood of Christ, we are in his presence in a special way when we go to an exposition. This is powerful. It is real. It is something we understand. And if you have someone who may not be ready to receive the Eucharist, please invite them to the exposition. And this is a real issue because we've got these people who police the Eucharist who will sit there and say, oh, those people shouldn't receive, and they'll be focused on trying to teach people not to receive. Never once do you hear them inviting someone to the exposition of the Eucharist, to be in the presence. Never once do you hear them say to be people of prayer elsewhere. That's the most powerful thing we can do. And that's intensely powerful, to teach people how to pray. We're called to be people of prayer, and that is important. And that means that the way we turn from sin is not by our own strength to say, I won't engage in sin. The way we turn from sin is we humble ourselves before the Lord, and we ask him to help us to walk down a path towards him and walk down a path that leads us to holiness. Now, I can go back to that tweet from Bishop Burbridge of Arlington, Virginia. And again, what he says, to avoid sin, we need vigilance and God's help. Okay, we understand that. We must remove from our lives any social media, relationships, and habits that lead us away from holiness, virtue, and purity. In doing so, we make room for God's grace, the gift that helps us to avoid the near occasion of sin. Notice what he says again, that we want to turn away from habits like social media and relationships and habits that lead us away from holiness, virtue, and purity. How do we find holiness and virtue and purity? We seek it in Christ. That means we don't turn around and turn away from sin so that we can be exposed to holiness, virtue, and purity. We turn to the Lord, which by default is turning away from sin, and asking him to help us to grow in holiness, virtue, and purity. There is something that I hear from the bishops that absolutely drives me nuts, and it's from some of the bishops, not all, and it is we have to grow in virtue. There's a truth to that, but remember, you can be an atheist and grow in virtue. I say that all the time, and this is why I really hate it when I hear that. I would rather hear the bishop say, we have to pray and we have to deepen our experience of prayer so that by doing so, we draw closer to Christ, which makes us follow a road of holiness, virtue, and purity. It really has to come down to prayer has to be first. And one of the real problems, and this is really stronger in the traditional communities, by the way, even though the traditional communities are people who seek the church before 1960, from 1962 and before. And if you ever read the saints who obviously lived long before 1962, they understood what I'm teaching you right now. They understood it well, that whole concept of we unite ourselves to Christ. So our focus really needs to be, how do we turn towards Christ? Because if we turn towards Christ, we will by default turn more and more away from sin. It's kind of like every time you turn to the east, you're turning against the west. And every degree you turn closer to the east is a degree you're turning away from the west. You're not trying to turn away from the west. It's part of the reality. If you say, well, how do I make it so I never look to the west? Then turn to the east. So if you want to live a life that turns from sin, make sure you have a life that focuses on prayer. Don't focus on a life seeking to turn from sin if your whole focus isn't first rooted in being people of prayer. We'll talk more tomorrow. We'll see you then. I want to call your attention to Catholic TV, which offers great faith-filled, family-friendly programming 24 hours a day. You can find your cable channel at www.getcatholictv.com, and you can watch online on the free apps or check out the YouTube channel. Daily Mass, Rosaries, the Divine Mercy Chaplet, and the Our Lady of Perpetual Help Novena are all available online and on demand. Check out CatholicTV.com. If you're searching for a meaningful spiritual experience, look no further than St. Anthony's Parish in Allston, Massachusetts. Join us at 43 Holton Street in between Soldiers Field Road and the Mass Pike. Immerse yourself in the complete St. Anthony's Parish encounter through our 10 o'clock a.m. chanted Mass. Whether you're a Catholic seeking a parish to call home or someone looking for spiritual guidance, our welcoming community is here for you. Visit our website at www.stanthonyalston.org for more information. St. Anthony's Parish, where faith finds a home.